if your spend is too low, you're most likely going to be spending a pretty good amount of money on our retainer for months on end while we're trying to figure out what's coming in and what's working and what's the data. Or you can front load it, spend some more money on the budget side and get some more data in, and we can figure this out a lot faster. So it's one of those things where it's like, do you want to wait for your data to come in, or do you want it to hurry up and come in? You're going to be paying for it regardless anyway. So that's kind of where that conversation comes in.
Welcome to the Ecomm Breakthrough Shortcuts. In these 5-minute episodes, we cut straight to the real stories, real numbers, and the real lessons learned from brand builders and entrepreneurs just like yourself. No fluff, just high impact takeaways that you can apply into your business today.
You're obviously using your Amazon attribution code. I'm sending traffic to a storefront. The storefront can't talk back to Google and Meta if someone converted, although it'd be a fantastic feature for Amazon to give, but they haven't done that yet. So if you're doing Google, the best you can do is focus on clicks. If you're doing Meta, the best you can do is focus on clicks or landing page views or whichever. So you do kind of hit a wall with that. So that's where it's really like, don't put tens of thousands of dollars a month into it. Let's just spend a little bit, get some traffic to the site, and let's see what happens. What a lot of people make the mistake of is Amazon is an extremely middle of funnel platform, right? Like it's rare people are there just kind of browsing, right? They have an intent. They're usually looking for something. Off Amazon, especially if you do something like meta ads, it's an education platform. You've got to educate them about the product and then incentivize them to go and convert. You can't just run ads and they start buying stuff. It just doesn't work that way. Google, that can be possible where it is still a very middle of funnel platform, especially if you're doing like search ads, but your cost per click is so much higher typically. And so while yes, your conversion rate should be higher, in this scenario, Google can't learn because you're sending it straight to the storefront. So that's kind of where you hit some walls. But to answer your question, yes, either start with Meta or Google and just go straight to Amazon.
Okay. And how much are you spending, to test this out? Like, and how many, is it like the number of clicks that you want to see? Like, what are some good guiding metrics that we can use to say like, oh yes, we've got a winner here, or actually, no, this is a loser. Like, let's not even pursue this any further. What are those metrics you're using to determine success?
Just like any metrics, every brand is going to be very different. Especially if you're doing Google, you're going to have massively varying cost per clicks on average. Through a meta side, it's a little bit different. What's the quality of this creative we're using, and all the different things that you kind of have to factor in when you're looking at marketing. But at a certain point, like you really don't need to be spending more than like a few $1,000s a month in advertising just to test it out. Usually I like to say like, look, if you're going to spend less than 100 a day, you're really only going to be able to get like 1 or 2 campaigns going. Otherwise, at an average, last I looked, Meta, the average cost per click was like $1.07 or something like that. So you're going to get maybe 50 clicks if you got 2 campaigns running a day. So that's not a ton of data to be able to figure out like where's the conversion and then being able to optimize from there. Because the other issue you have is optimizing is challenging because you're just doing it off of really improving the click-through rate as much as you can. So it kind of depends, but usually if you're starting off with a platform from scratch, spending less than like $100 a day, you kind of hit a wall with how much data you're coming in. From an agency perspective, assuming that in this scenario, obviously a brand's coming to us, one of the things I always warn them is if your spend is too low, you're most likely going to be spending a pretty good amount of money on our retainer for months on end while we're trying to figure out what's coming in and what's working and what's the data. Or you can front load it, spend some more money on the budget side and get some more data in, and we can figure this out a lot faster. So it's one of those things where it's like, do you want to wait for your data to come in, or do you want it to hurry up and come in? You're going to be paying for it regardless anyway. So that's kind of where that conversation comes in.
Okay. So what would be like a healthy budget then, as like a ballpark, right? If somebody is a client and they're like, yeah, let's test this out. Like what's an ideal budget? Because you said $100 a day, probably not going to get you enough, right? So 3,000 is probably a little too low per month. What's ideal?
Let's say we're just doing one product and we're doing like a top seller. Let's drive traffic straight to that page directly on the storefront, see if that thing convert. I definitely probably would not suggest going lower than 100 a day. usually you want to be like at least at that 5K range on a monthly basis, just so that you've got some data and you can put some other things in place, right? On Google, it's a matter of that cost per click is going to be much higher. So you're only going to be able to get so much traffic. On Meta, because of that platform, you got to have several campaigns in place. Typically, you want something that's more top of funnel. So it could be something that's just like, let's get some video views in, let's get some engagement, and then let's retarget people that showed interest and send them straight to the storefront. So at a minimum, I need 2 or 3 campaigns for that. So that's kind of where factoring some of that stuff comes in. But usually I'd say you want to be close to that 5K range.
For both Google and Meta combined? Or is that
per platform?
Per platform. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 10K in. All right. Now, what are the leading metrics that you're going to say, hey, this is working successfully or it's not, right? Because I know brand attribution, people have very mixed opinions on whether Amazon's actually tracking and reporting good data from the brand attribution links. So what are like the measurements? If I just spent $10,000, how should I know whether I should continue pursuing like, hey, yes, this is working, or I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze here to double down and do the D2C route?
Very interesting question. The obvious, how much revenue did you bring in, right? That if your attribution's showing you correctly, then great, fantastic, it worked out well for you. That answers that question. Where it gets a little more convoluted is what did actually convert and how close were you to at least a break even? Excuse me. And the only reason I say that, and I know that's the last thing people want to hear, is like, why would I do this if I'm not even breaking even? But you have so little control because Amazon's not speaking back to these platforms. So you really can't optimize for conversion. And the storefronts, while Amazon loves to release like a random feature every now and then, they still are way off from like having any functionality that you can really control the overall experience and make sure that you're kind of taking people where you need them to. So I always take that whole customer journey with a grain of salt. And I say, if we can get people to convert, and let's say it's what we just define as a tolerable level, which is going to be on a per brand basis, then we know it's possible. And it might be worth the investment to just create a landing page. Landing page is not crazy expensive anyway. So that'll really reduce it. Then you can have the available on Amazon button so that at least like you can track them going to this back to Amazon that way. So you still have the option. But then there's some other stuff to think about, right? So where the available on Amazon button becomes kind of interesting is if you're taking them straight to the listing. Because if you're taking them straight to the listing, you're including more traffic. Ideally, you're getting more orders and more reviews and more engagement, which is basically all Amazon's algorithm cares about. So all of a sudden, your organic ranking on Amazon starts to improve. So that's where it becomes kind of an interesting question of like, okay, well, what other benefits are we getting from this? So now all of a sudden, do I need to factor in my top line revenue for this entire product that we're driving traffic to? Some people will say, yeah, we should totally factor that in. Others will be like, yeah, but I'm testing to get away from Amazon. So why do I care about that right now? And both are sound arguments. So the other thing to look at is just from a trend perspective, this individual product that you're driving traffic to, how much revenue is it brought in pretty much on an average? Let's figure out what that average is. Since we increased this budget targeting that specific product line, how much are you at now? Have we seen an incremental top of line increase? Is there enough gray area there for us to say like it does seem like the Meta and or Google ads really helped here? Or was there really no increase at all? In which case you're like, well, we tried and it didn't work. And then you just don't do it. Or you go back to the drawing board, you relook at creative and stuff and say, do we want to try this a different way? But at least you gave it a shot.